Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Basically, it depends the part of the world you are joining us from. I remember Mazi Chika Austin, and I'm here again to talk about evolving issues that are evolving. You know, we're in the business of discussing issues, especially when it has to do with international politics, global development. That is basically what we drive interest. And of course, the issue that has to do with the Biafran self-determination. We means no word to emphatically state that this is the area we have a high passion on. And I believe I'm coming out loud and clear. I believe you are receiving me clearly from your end. So we have some things. Please let us know if we are coming out clear audio-wise and visual-wise. Let us know. Something we want to talk about. If you look at your gadget, you will see the title of the moment topic, where we are talking about understanding the Sudan factor in U.S. policy towards Nigeria. Sorry, that Nigeria is wrongly spelled. Perhaps I will do correction on that quickly. Let me see if that can be possible. Please endeavor to let us know if we are coming out loud and clear. Please endeavor to do justice to that. I want to understand how clear we are coming out in terms of visual and audio. So we want to talk about understanding the Sudan factor. And most of us do not understand why, when US is talking about Nigeria, Nigerian policymakers are talking about Sudan. Is a great contradiction, and it begs for questions. If Nigerians are people who ask questions, critical questions, the question should be, why is it US is talking about Christian genocide in Nigeria and other people are talking about Sudan? And of course, the Nigerian media should start investigating the correlation between Sudan and Nigeria, because it seems the more US is talking about Nigeria, the more Nigerian handlers are talking about Sudan. The more US is talking about, Christian genocide in Nigeria, the more Nigerian politicians and notable figures are talking about Sudan. And that is what drives our interest to know, to investigate why this, popularization of Sudan factor. Very, very important. Why is everybody talking about Sudan? US is talking about, please help me to share this program. It's very, very important we share this program. US is talking about, Nigeria, and Nigerian politicians are talking about Sudan. So let's now look into Sudan. Let's ask questions of things that happened in Sudan. Let us look at US behavior in Sudan, because Nigerian politicians easily talk about Sudan, but they fail to tell Nigerians what actually happened in Sudan. What did the US did in Sudan that is inimical to Nigeria? What did the US acted in Sudan that is undermining or that is possible to be replicated in Nigeria? These are where critical questions come in. These are where media houses ought to have approached you know, the handlers of the Nigerian state and begin to ask them questions. Please tell us more. What happened in Sudan? What went on in Sudan? What the heck did the U.S. actually did in Sudan that is raising that, fear in Nigeria? And that is one of those things. There are a lot of things we talk about Sudan, but we're going to concentrate more on Sharia in Sudan. How did the U.S. handle Sharia in Sudan? What did it lead to? Very, very important. But before we go into that, you must understand that currently U.S. and Nigeria is still having issue in agreeing on term of what is going on in Nigeria. U.S. officially said is Christian genocide at official level. Take note of this. U.S. position, official position is that it's Christian genocide. And Nigeria does not accept that official position. Nigeria officially does not see the kidnapping, the killings going on in Nigeria as religious propelled. So the two governments are still having a strong disagreement into, what could be called, as in what is happening in Nigeria, what it should be called. The two governments has not agreed. And countries can only cooperate when they have a common understanding to a problem. So for those of you who are telling that US and Nigeria will cooperate in terms of military solving the problem, is pure lie. First of all, the first ground as far as diplomacy and international cooperation is concerned, the first ground is agreement on the problem. The two countries have not agreed yet, even as I speak to you, that the problem is religious problem. US officially has said it is a religious problem. US Congress has pinned that narrative strongly. US executive, I'm talking about White House, has also made a submission on that. But Nigerian state has not agreed that narrative. So cooperation is not yet foreseeable. Cooperation is not yet foreseeable because you need to first of all acknowledge, there should be a bilateral acknowledgement of the cause of the problem before you can now talk about bilateral cooperation in solving that problem. So at the level of agreeing, Nigeria and US has not really done any agreement. That is, by the way, and that is why the tension is still high. That's why US is still marshalling out, strategy at which to punish the Nigerian state or the handlers of Nigerian state. We can see visa ban. We can also see US is also talking about bringing out other plans, which we are going to see in a couple of days. So until the two countries agree, cooperation is not yet foreseeable. Take note of that. What we are discussing is diplomatic issue, international politics, global cooperation, how it works. Now, let's look at some of the things US came up with. US came up with a strong position, and there are several positions US came up with. But we are going to concentrate on the notable ones, as in the key ones, the ones that are really, really telling. And the key ones are, US is saying that Sharia law should be abrogated. Sharia law should be abolished in Nigeria, which means if Sharia law is to be abolished, remember Sharia law reflects even in Nigerian constitution. What that implies is that Nigerian constitution needs to be immediately reviewed. And areas that Sharia appeared needs to be removed from Nigerian constitution. And it also means that places where Sharia laws are being applied as a means of jurisprudence should stop. That is a strong US demand. Another thing US is demanding is that Hizbah, which is Sharia police, also should be disbanded. Yes, US is saying that Hizbah should also be disbanded. And you know Hizbah is a Sharia police that enforces Sharia law. US is saying that that agency must be decommissioned. This is what US is saying. And US is also saying that the Fulani terrorists must be disarmed. Remember, all these things US is highlighting, there is no option. It's a must. It said Fulani terrorists must be disarmed, and those who were displaced from their indigenous land, like those of them in Middle Belt, you know, most of them in Chibok, in Bama, you know, and all the rest of them, that they should be returned back. So the idea of IDP camp, US said she is not interested in seeing indigenous people being in IDP camps while Fulani militias or Fulani terrorists occupy the indigenous land. US said is a concern to her, and that must be revised. This is the position of US. You see, why US is saying all these things, some within the Nigerian government are not seeing it from the angle at which US is putting up the issue. Rather, they are calling Sudan. And let us ask ourselves a question. Why is it that why US is talking about Nigeria, actors in Nigeria are talking about Sudan? So let us look into Sudan. What actually happened in Sudan? What took place in Sudan? Who acted what in Sudan? Very, very important. The essence of it is for you to understand that the continuous referencing of Sudan is not by mistake. It's not an act of slip of tongue. It is a conscious remission to what happened in Sudan. And let's look at what happened in Sudan from a historical perspective as regards to Sharia. Very, very important. So Sharia was first imposed nationwide in Sudan. You know, Sudan could be said to be a prototype of Nigeria in terms of religion. Sudan is a prototype of Nigeria because I'm talking about the old Sudan. Because the old Sudan, you have those in the southern part of that old Sudan who are mainly Christians. If you look at the Darfur area and all the rest of them, then you have those of them in the north. You have those of them in the northern part of Sudan who are mainly Muslims. So the old Sudan was a composition of Christian-dominated south and Muslims-dominated north. But then what happened in Sudan was this. The Muslim-dominated north were in charge of governance. They have the political control. And because they had the political control, they made sure, you know, Islamic lifestyle should be made a national lifestyle. I wish you understand the narrative. Because the Muslim-dominated North were in charge of the political circle. They dominate the politics of Sudan, the old Sudan. Take note of that. We are talking about the old Sudan. They now made it pertinent that Islamic lifestyle should be a national lifestyle, not minding the sensitivity of religious composition of Sudan. They insisted that those of them in South should also observe Sharia. Do you understand me? So, in 1983, under the president of Gafa, Nimeri, they made a decree that whosoever, the degree is Islamic law, but the observation must be observed. This is what they felt, that the observation must be observed both by the Christian Sudanese and the Muslim Sudanese. Now, look at the degrees they introduce. That whosoever consumes alcohol, this was in 1983, must be flogged, amputed, that is cutting the person's hand or any part of the body. So, and this was to be experienced or observed by all the citizens of Sudan, including Christians, including atheists, including Muslims. So in 1983 in Sudan, a law was made, a Sharia law was made. And that law was expected to govern both Muslim, Christians, animalists, atheists, and what have you. And when that happened, there was, an outbreak of war. Because Christian part of Sudan, they say, no, how could you enact Sharia law for us to also obey it? And civil war broke out as a result of attempt to Islamize the entire Sudan. You cannot understand why these people are shouting Sudan. When America is talking about Nigeria, they are saying, oh, America wants to do something exactly to what happened in Sudan. Why? Because they know that the Sharia that could not be implemented in Sudan, the Islamization of Sudan that America aborted, which they want to now try in Nigeria, that America has also come to destroy it. That is the essence of hysteria. The hysteria you're hearing here and there, the uproar and all this, is because somebody is feeling concerned that a project that failed in Sudan, what they could not achieve in Sudan, which they want to achieve in Nigeria, that the US, who destroyed it in Sudan, wants to also destroy it in Nigeria. Now, so that action, the attempt to Islamize the entire Sudan without considering the Christian faith and others, led to civil war in Sudan. And of course, over 2 million people, a lot of people died in that civil war. Very important to note about that. So, that act, the failed plan to Islamize Sudan, which most of them felt it was an aborted project. So many of them now believe they could replicate it in Nigeria. That is how funny it is. And most of you, I want you to understand something. Most Muslim clerics studied in Sudan. Go and research. There are two major places Islamic intellectual and academic knowledge is centered on, as far as the world Islamic history is concerned. You talk about Sudan. Sorry, you talk about Saudi Arabia, you talk about Sudan. Saudi and Sudan, they are epicenters of Muslim intellectualism. There is absolutely nobody in Nigeria who is a major Islamic scholar or cleric that does not pass through Sudan. As a matter of fact, Sudan could be said to be a Saudi Arabia in Africa. So what they wanted to plan in Sudan, what they wanted to achieve in Sudan, which America aborted, America scattered it, America disorganized it. Although it was America-Israeli joint operation, we shouldn't forget to also give credit to Israel for clandestine operations she did. So that thing they could not achieve in Sudan. So many of them felt, oh, we can still do it in Nigeria. Though the Sudanese Christians were so resistant, they resisted it. But these guys know that in Nigeria, you can't have that resistance amongst Nigerian Christians, because most Nigerian Christian clergymen are just, should I say, content creators, and are shabby men and women of God, so to say. So to say. So they now felt, okay, let us see if we can, what we could not do in Sudan, let us see if we can apply it in Nigeria. But meanwhile, I want to tell you some of the actions US did in Sudan that these guys are suspicious of. You see, when they were doing what they were doing in Sudan, US had never, at official capacity, stated that she was going to divide divide Sudan. There is no official record where US stated that because of Islamization agenda in Sudan, we are going to divide it. There was no official statement where US said it. But the US succeeded in dividing Sudan. Yes, US did. Has US ever said she's coming to divide Nigeria? There is no official reference to that. But can US do it? Yes, US can do it. Because in diplomacy, language is considered as a very strong factor. Countries do not speak verbatim. Countries do not speak on obvious notes. Countries are very meticulous and technical in language applications and usage. Very, very important to understand that. There is no way you will say US said or threatened to divide Sudan. But did the US achieve that? Yes, US achieved that. Did the US forewarned? US never forewarned of that. Now, but let's look at some of the things US did that she's doing today that makes everybody to be referencing Sudan. So the United States did not issue any formal explicit demand of Sudanese disintegration. Take note of that. However, US policy consistently criticized its implementation of Sharia as a tool of religious persecution. There was no place US threatened to disintegrate Sudan, but US condemned the idea of Sharia law. US condemned the idea of Sharia law. US frowned over that. And US saw it as a tool of suppression and religious persecution. Now, what did the US did? In 1998, US designated Sudan. In 1998, US designated Sudan as a country of particular concern. Take note of that. US designated Sudan in 1998 as a country of particular concern. And from there, US expected them, the proponents of Sharia, to fall back. US expected them, the jihadists, those in political jihadists, the political jihadists, the economic jihadists, and religious jihadists, to push back. But they never. Rather, they were bragging and boasting. And today, they have lost the entire Sudan. They did not only lose the southern Sudan, they did not only lost the southern Sudan, they are even losing the northern Sudan currently. And that is why you see those of them, their partners in Nigeria, being unsettled, being worried and concerned, saying that, oh, what US is trying to do to Nigeria is what she did in Sudan. But let me tell you the difficulties they are going to face. US is not stupid. I want you to understand that. US has one of the best global intelligence. United States has one of the best global intelligence. What US does not want to see is what she just felt not to be seen. What US does not want to see is what she pretends not to see. And of course, you should also understand that US also understand that Islam in Nigeria is mainly sustained not by the Hausa man. The Hausa man is not an extreme when it comes to the preservation of Islam. US know that the Yoruba Muslims are not extreme when it comes to Islam preservation. The US understand that Islam in Nigeria pinges on the extremism of the Fulani, because the Fulanis understand that they cannot maintain political control without using the religious control. And US knows it. US intelligence knows it. And what did the US came up, the idea US came up? US, okay, the best thing to do is to hit the center of force. And the center of Islamic force does not lie on the shoulder of the Hausa man. It does not lie on the shoulder of the Yoruba Muslim. They are all liberal. They are all liberal Muslim. They are not conservative. There is no Hausa man that is a conservative Muslim. There is no Yoruba Muslim that is conservative. That's why Tinubu even married a pastor who is shouting Jesus under his roof. Because the Yoruba, just like when you see a middle belt and there is a Muslim, he's just a Muslim because he converted to Muslim because of job. Some Igbo fellows, to very little number of them also did it, who started nodding their head on the ground because they wanted favor. That's exactly what happened in the Middle Belt. That's exactly what happened to most Yoruba people. So the US intelligence know that the way, if we want to weaken this extremism, if we want to undermine this extremism, we must concentrate in working on the Fulanis. And that is why, if you look at the core 3, or should I say 4 demands US gave: abolition of Sharia, disbandment of Hizbah, disarmament of Fulani. They didn't mention any ethnic group. They emphatically stated the Fulanis. Why? Because the US knows that if Fulanis are not shaped, if Fulanis are not weakened, it will be so difficult for Islamic fundamentalists to stop expanding in Nigeria. US understands that. US understands that. And now look at the whole difficulties. And remember why we make all this analysis is for you to understand what the future holds. For you to understand what the future holds. Because your inability to understand what the future holds will make you to be taken on a surprise. The honest truth remains. The option US has offered is going to lead to a war. Listen. It's going to lead to a war, not between US and the Fulanis. Take note of this. The condition US has given is a very stringent condition. It's not just going to be a war between Fulanis and US. Take note of what I want to say. It's going to be a war between Fulanis and Tinubu. Because Tinubu is sitting on a position where he's receiving pressure from the Fulanis who are telling him, don't disband Sharia. Don't disarm Fulanis. Don't disband Hizbah. That is pressure from one side. In other way around, Tinubu is also facing pressure from US that is telling him that you must do it. It's a must. If you don't do it, we'll come in and find a way how to do it. So that is why most people will always tell you pray for Tinubu, because the current state at which Tinubu is a very delicate one. It's very, very delicate. And I don't think Tinubu ever foresaw what is playing out today. I doubt. If he ever did, he wouldn't have used the word Emilokon. He wouldn't have said it's his turn. I think this is the wrong time or wrong turn for him. Because he has the Fulanis to contend, who will tell him, if you obey what the US said, it means you are against the Fulanis. You are against Islam. In other words, he has a current American leadership that is very vocal, that doesn't mind how you feel in talking. He has the American president, current American leadership, that is insisting at the level of Congress and executive that this must be done. Now, it becomes a very serious challenge for Tinubu. It becomes a very serious challenge for Tinubu. Now, where everything is likely, this is my submission, which is not perfect, which is not absolute. Where I think everything is going to happen, you had former media aide to late Buhari, speaking this morning, insisting that US does not have power to, I'm talking about Bashar Ahmed, was speaking this morning and said, Bashar Ahmed said, call for ban on Sharia law. US has no right to dictate to us. And these are kind of the languages that the current US president does not want to hear. I told us earlier on, if you recall my earlier post and my earlier submissions, I keep telling us that forget what anybody is telling you that Nigeria and US are normalizing relationship. I told us earlier, I said the tune I'm hearing doesn't point to that fact. And what are those tunes? The tunes like US is saying it's a Christian genocide, and somebody is saying no, it's not. We have our own narrative of what it is, thereby trying to tell US intelligence agencies and the US president, a president that controls the highest and the best intelligence circle all over the world, that they are not properly informed. And this is what US doesn't want to hear in their own arrogancy. Truth be told, US has some level of arrogance as a superpower. US does not want anybody, especially those from third world countries, so to say, to remind them that their intelligence are flawed. The intelligence reports are flawed, or they are wrong, so to say. And this is what Nigeria has buying time to explain to US, that what you think you know over what is going on in Nigeria is wrong. Your intelligence are pure wrong. And the more they say that to Washington, D.C., the more U.S. is getting upset. The more they say that to the, what is it called? U.S. Department of State, the more U.S. is feeling concerned. The more U.S. is getting agitated. Very, very important. The more U.S. is feeling that somebody from third world countries are just doubting their capabilities. So, as it is now, Nigeria is sitting in a very disturbing situation. And forget whatever anybody can tell you now. I want to sincerely say this to you with all sincerity and purpose. Forget what anybody can tell you now by telling you, oh, Nigeria is indivisible. US cannot dictate to us. US cannot. Let me tell you, every one of them sounding this. If US drop the first boot on the ground, all of them will disappear. None of them has what it takes to resist US. If US decide to take internal incursion into Nigeria, none of them have it. None of them have the resistance capability to resist the US. Not even an American, not even Nigerian president. So are you not seeing that their tunes are coming down from sounding tough and they are now being careful? Ask yourself a question. Why is it that Nigerian Minister for Foreign Affairs is not speaking much? At the earlier time, they were on the top of their voices. Why is anybody, bringing down his or her tune? Because reality is before all of them. Bible told you that US have been pressing their neck. Most of you will not understand how countries correspond to each other. Most of these Nigerian government officials have already gotten their private messages, shocking private messages. There are certain correspondences that must not be on the open channels. But you send it to appropriate hand. They get it and they behave responsibly. So, for those of you who think US is kidding, I think you should be the one to advise self that you're kidding. And for your information, as much as you should know, for your information, every neighboring country of Nigeria is bendable to US pressure. All the neighboring countries of Nigeria, as the neighboring countries to Nigeria, are bendable to US pressure. They can easily submit their soil for US military operation against Nigeria. So, let that act of thinking that US will back down, let that act cease. And for those of you who have the story of they are coming for our oil, I picked something from a group yesterday where they were writing that US is bombing Venezuela, because of oil. And I said, this is the height of misinformation. The bombings that are going on in Venezuela is US Pentagon bombing those who are trying to, smuggle in narcotic products, drugs to US. And Pentagon is bombing them on the waterways. These are things people do not tell you. Pentagon is not bombing Venezuela. It's a war, a drug war that US is carrying out in Venezuela coast, which is the smuggling route to those drugs to US, and US is intercepting them off US soil. You must understand all these things. So everyone who cares to know should know that, know this thing, and it's very, very important you note it. There is no country on earth, historically speaking, I stand to be corrected by the so-called intellectuals. There is no country on earth. There is absolutely no country on earth that US has deliberated on that remains the same. Go and make your research. Go and make your research. There is absolutely no country on earth that US had deliberated on that remains the same. If US deliberates on you, you are already a country of concern. Your old configuration must change. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm talking at the level of deliberation, at the level that US decide to discuss about a particular country. Whenever US discusses about a country, that country will never remain the same. And the case, that is exactly what is going to happen to Nigeria. That is exactly what is going to happen to Nigeria. Why we are saying all these things is for you people to understand what mainstream media, conventional media platforms are not ready to tell you. They are not ready to tell you. They are not ready to inform you of. Because they don't want you to know. They believe that the best way to control you is to soak you in ignorance, disinformation, misinformation, and in most cases, information denial. That when they put you in a blackout, information blackout, that they cannot control you effectively. So let's see how Tinubu is going to manage US influence and Fulani influence. Let's just see how it goes. Let's just see how it goes. Because it's a very difficult situation for Tinubu. I must tell you, it's a very serious situation or period. It's a challenging period for Tinubu. And of course for Nigeria as a country at large. And for your information, there is something people are not seeing, but I want to point your mind towards that. You see, when US made earlier decision and Nigeria ran to China, ran to Russia to at least have them opinionate on this, I said it outrightly that that was a very wrong calculation. It was a very wrong calculation. But, you know, what do you have in Nigeria? You have politician, probably somebody, you do Yahoo, you get money, and you find yourself in corridor of power. Maybe you did drug, you have a whole lot of money, you find yourself in political circle. But the honest truth remains that Nigerian handlers are mentally terrible. You see, in arrogancy and predictable way, when US made that earlier position, ordinarily they would have chilled. They would have chilled down and do more of underground work than vituperations. But guess what? They were just lobbying to Aruti, Russian television, lobbying all the other side platform. You understand me? Even Putin lobbying that this country should speak. China spoke, EU spoke, of course Russia spoke. And I said to people, they have ignorantly escalated this problem. Because you should understand the temperament of a leader before you know how to follow him or how to handle him. The current US government, the current US president, is a man that when you say he cannot do anything, he wants to prove to you that he can do it and he has the capabilities. So when you have somebody with such temperament, when you have somebody that has such behavioral display, the only way to defend him is not to fly above his radar. Rather, you fly below his radar. But guess what? Trust Nigerian handlers. Trust whom they are. They were making noise. They pressured China to speak. They pressure EU. They pressure Russia. Has the speaking of those people stopped US advancement? The answer is no. In fact, as a matter of fact, current US government is interpreting what is going on in Nigeria as a war between US and China as a country. They are now seeing it that China is backing the fundamentalists in the north. That in so doing, they have to prove to China that China does not have what it takes to stop US policy and plan towards Nigeria. So the Nigerian handlers have successfully, disadvantageously escalated the problem to what it is today. You understand me? They have escalated it to what it is today. So if anybody tells you it's going to be going down, that the issue is going to be going down, that person does not know what he's saying. US is already doing a lot of clandestine works in Nigeria. Before American government president speaks, a lot of secret services, intelligence services are already at work. Yes. Don't be surprised tomorrow you'll be hearing that this person's house exploded and he died in the process. This person, US might start a very dangerous elimination project. That's why Pablo said the US is on their neck, pressing their neck. You must understand that. You must understand that. Because when you do not understand all these things and how they work, you will not think it's a joke. And as a matter of fact, let me tell you why the whole thing is serious. Why the Congress, US has the lower chamber, just like Nigeria and the upper chamber. Why the lower chamber has taken a position. As a matter of fact, the Republicans are controlling both the executive, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, the Congress. Now, why the lower house have taken a position on what they said, which is abrogation of Sharia, disbanding of Hizbah, and disarming of the Fulanis. That is for the lower house. Take note of this. Why you should understand what US is cooking for Nigeria is a very, very pepperish soup. You know, there is this soup that when you finish eating it, both your nostril, every part of your body will be pumping out water like water tap. Now look at what look at the strategy the US government is adopting. They have already destroyed Nigeria media-wise. They have used their media propaganda to destroy the image of Nigeria, thereby destroying the view of, you know, Nigeria before the American people. I want you to understand the game and how it's going. Take note of this. Normally, US president would have just ordered the attack of Fulanis. But why you should be worried of the delay is because what US is planning is a long-term operation, not a short-term. A long-term operation in Nigeria. Let me tell you why it's a long-term. Anytime US has a long-term operation in Nigeria, any country US has a long-term operation, that country might likely go the way of disintegration. I said might likely, take note of my word. Now, ordinarily, the US president would have sent an attack jet and they start dropping bombs where these guys are. But do you know why? US is not planning that kind of operation. When you do that kind of operation, you will definitely have criticism from the House of Congress and the Senate. And when you're doing it, you can now go and seek the power for authorization of war. It comes from the House. Now, what is Donald Trump doing? He doesn't want to make it a short operation. Because if he starts attacking without walking his way from the House, he will face criticism from the Democrats, definitely. Even some Republicans will not be happy that the president is taking the U.S. military to foreign land without the House consent. It will not be a good one. Just the way the operation in Iran, if you remember the operation in Iran, it was not a long-term operation plan. It was not a lengthy operation plan. That was why the U.S. president did it without going to the House. He just attacked and withdrew, ended up that operation. Before the House could converge to start discussing, criticizing, he's already out of Iranian airspace. It's a strategic plan. In the case of Nigeria, he does not want to go that way. Because if he goes that way, that means it's going to be a short-term plan. But because they have intention for long-term plan, they first of all destroy Nigeria image media-wise. Even CNN, that's supposed to be a liberal media platform, they ruined Nigeria image there. Fox News, they destroy Nigeria. Association Press, AP, they mess Nigeria up. And of course, even in US, people are protesting against Christian genocide in Nigeria. It's a strategy. What they are teaching Nigeria is war, the real war, how propaganda is being done. They are coaching Nigeria. You know, when Nigeria thinks they know how to do propaganda, they are teaching Nigeria advanced propaganda. So media-wise, they have destroyed Nigeria image, thereby having sympathy of Americans towards whatever will be the operational plan of the US to save the Christians in Nigeria. As they are done with that, they move to the Congress. And the Congress has come up with a position asking that their position, the House of Rep, their position is that disarm the Fulanis, abolish Sharia, disband Hizbah, which is a very difficult thing. Now, Ted Cruz is already pushing a bill to the Senate. I want to tell you what strategic plan is all about and long-term plan. Why we are telling you all these things, so that for those of you, you understand where your Nigeria is heading tomorrow. Now, Ted Cruz is already pushing a bill in Senate. Already Congress, House of Rep has concluded. They are now in the Senate. Senate will have a resolution like the House of Rep, and the mandate, probably the resolution will be that that American president, you are even delaying. You should work immediately to disband these people. Do everything on a speed lane to get these people, disbanded. That is exactly what the Senate, the U.S. Senate, is working on. Now, when the Senate will push it to Donald Trump, it will not be that the American people are in support because they have worked on Nigeria media-wise. American people are in support because their elected representatives in the House of Rep have already given a resolution. That American people are in support because their Senate have also mandated. Then U.S. will strike militarily. Not just striking military. That thing, most of you are shouting that you don't want military base. You will have it without condition. And if you are not careful, it goes to Sudan way. The Sudan way you see them shouting, which is splitting the country, US will do it. She has the capacity to do it. It's better you understand all these realities than being on self-denial that US doesn't have the capacity, or being among those of them in the school of thought that it cannot happen. US is not going all this process for time wastage or money wastage. Nobody is wasting anything. They are teaching Nigeria what a strategic planning is all about. They are taking Nigeria to a process that is difficult for Nigeria to bring out her head. Of course, Tinubu knows it. Key Fulani fellows, they know it. So I will, at this very moment, bring Mazi Patrick Ikem and Mazi Keke for their opinions. Very, very important. Very, very important. Mazi Patrick Ikem, Mazi Keke, Oda, please send your request so that we can have you. So that is what it is. And I believe every sincere Nigerian should appreciate us for telling you what your future holds. It's very, very important. It's very, very important it's very, very important to understand this, because when we tell people, I don't know whether I can't have these people on request. Don't know whether it's my network. Yeah. Okay, I don't know. I said, okay. So that is what it is. That is what it is. So while I'm waiting, perhaps I have to call, because to adding them here becomes a problem. Maybe we have to get some of them on WhatsApp to hear what their opinion is all about, as a matter of fact. So these are what the whole thing is all about. And people should start appreciating. Okay, Mazi, are you here? I have to get you. It's very difficult to get you on the program. Okay. So I'm trying to see if I can get these people. Mazi Patrick, and Mazi Keke. Don't know why It's getting so difficult. Okay, let me see if I can call Patrick on WhatsApp. We also need to hear what their opinions are all about. Very, very important. Mazi Patrick, you can pick. I'm just calling you on WhatsApp. We have to understand the trajectory at which things are going on. Because if we don't explain all these things to them, they will think they still have a future to relax and celebrate. But the truth remains, this is what U.S. operation. Okay, Mazi, are you here? So I just say, let me get you on WhatsApp so that.
Because I was accepting your request on live.
Okay, so
I tried to accept, but I don't know what happened.
Okay, please, can we hear your opinion in respect to what we are talking? And I believe our people are listening.
Yeah, thank you for the call. I didn't even know you were the one calling me. I had to pick the call because I was watching. Anyway, Mazi, you have laid down the very, very important points here. Laid out there are very, very, very critical points. And these are the realities. The truth of the matter is Nigerian APC government have shown a very high level of irresponsibility. From the moment the issue of the Christian genocide was raised, there was this pushback, from pushback to denial.
Yes.
And, you know, as disorganized as Nigeria is, they think that they are dealing with disorganized society like themselves, forgetting that the data of these events have been, the gathering of this data have been going on for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. You're quite correct.
And forgetting also that during Donald Trump's first term in office, that he also put Nigeria on that designation. Coming back again to see that there have not been any kind of improvement in curtailing the persecution of Christians. You know, so that first designation was removed by Joe Biden, which you know that whatever Joe Biden does, Donald Trump will always like to do it.
Yes,
because
but
they see,
they
see Joe Biden as a saboteur. Not just a bad leader, but as a saboteur. That is the truth of the matter. Because we also know that the Democratic Party has been hijacked by terrorist sympathizers and jihadists. There is no doubt. When you look at the way the Democratic Party is congregated, you know that these are a bunch of terrorist sympathizers. They receive funds from terrorist organizations, obviously, globally, to fund their party and their campaign, including the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood have taken over the Democratic Party. And this Muslim Brotherhood is also
okay, Mazi, can you hold on? Can you hold on? We are having a very interesting breaking news right now, and it's important we call the attention. Okay, he's saying this Boala says, he said, we are not Venezuela. Boala says US cannot ask Nigeria to amend constitution. So the whole thing is escalating every day. So Nigeria has responded to US demand that the issue of abolishing Sharia, canceling Hizbah, that Nigeria is not a Venezuela. So what Nigeria, the signal Nigeria is sending to Trump now is that they are stronger than Venezuela, and America does not.
No, Mazi, that is not the point. It's not a question of strength.
But,
You understand what I'm saying?
that is what they are saying here, that they are not Venezuela. So what do you think? Let's hear your opinion.
Let me tell you something. Those are just rhetorics. Those are rhetorics. The point here is that Nigeria is not ready to amend its constitution. Let me tell you something we need to understand.
Go ahead.
One thing we need to understand is that the leaders of Nigeria have systematically Islamized the country.
Okay.
And from American point of view, America sees Nigeria as a secular state. And if Nigeria have to exist as a secular state, there shouldn't be any form of religious infiltration in the laws and the constitution. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
So, the issue of Boala saying that they are not Venezuela, these are just rhetoric. These are just rhetoric. The point that America is looking at is that defiance in taking evaluations into the causes of the Christian genocide, which is the refusal to amend the constitution that can contain every religion and give people equal right to exist within the same space.
Okay.
Whether you are Christian, Muslim, Hindu, whatever, no particular religion should rule any other. There should be equal rights. You shouldn't have a system where in a secular state where you now have a particular religion dominating the rest.
Okay, Mazi, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? Because you cannot change the Sharia law or abolish it without altering Nigerian constitution, because even in Nigerian constitution, let me get my figure right. If you look at Nigerian constitution, sorry, let me get my figure right. If you look at the so-called Nigerian secular constitution, you will understand that Sharia is mentioned in is mentioned many times in Nigerian constitution, and these guys are saying you must abolish. That means you must also rework the Nigerian constitution. And you should also understand there are people locally who have been asking for change of constitution. Do you think Nigeria is ready for alteration of their constitution?
Mazi, this is where the issues lie. We're talking about for a very, very long time.
Okay.
That we cannot operate a system or live in a system where you have confusion, constitutional confusion, where you have a constitution written to undermine the rights of others to exist within that system. So it's like America is now beginning to see our point of view here. And this is what we've been shouting for a very long time. Now, the question whether Nigeria is ready to adjust its constitution to fit the realities of our secularism is a question the legislators have to answer. Okay. You understand what it's not a question me and you have to answer.
Okay.
It is a question the Nigerian leadership have to answer. Are they ready to build a Nigeria of egalitarian society? Are they ready to build a Nigeria that is in its true reality, a secular state? So I believe that our viewers should be able to get, because we are not in a position to make that decision for them.
Okay, somebody is asking a question. For better clarity, I'm just using a search engine. Somebody is asking, is Sharia in Nigerian constitution? And the answer is yes. The constitution uses the term Sharia law or Islamic law in Nigerian constitution. There are places you see it. The word Sharia or Sharia does not appear even in the 1999 constitution of the federal. So, okay, Mazi, while you're talking, keep on talking. Let me get areas Sharia is mentioned and how they are mentioned. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that the leadership of the Nigerian state have to make that decision. If they want a country that is secular in its school, not just on papers or on words, but in reality, a secular society where everybody has to exercise their equal right without any domineering factor.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? And that is why it's important that we continue to educate our people the importance of what is playing out in this generation now, because Nigeria was in fact constituted on falsehoods from this foundation, and that falsehood have continued.
Okay, yes. Why, Mazi?
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, Mazi. Also, let us clarify the question somebody asked earlier about Sharia in Nigerian Constitution. Section 6 of Nigerian Constitution says the section gives the federal government court and the state high court jurisdiction, but exclude matter within the jurisdiction of the Sharia Court of Appeal. So in Nigerian Constitution, there is a recognition of Sharia Court of Appeal of a state or the customary Court of Appeal. Section 26, establishment of Sharia Court of Appeal. You see that in Section 26 of Nigerian Constitution of Appeal of Federal Capital Territories. They also recognize that there should be a Sharia Court of Appeal in FCT, which is a federal capital territory. Section 261 also specifies the qualification of judges. That is the Grand Qadi and the Qadis. These are the judges in Sharia court. You understand me? So Section 275 also talks about Sharia. Section 277 also talks about Sharia. Section 279 also talk about Islamic personal law. Section 280 also talks about practice and procedures. Very, very important. So anybody saying that there is no Sharia law in Nigerian Constitution, maybe the person is naive. Mazi, you can go on.
Yes, so no, because there are a lot of our people who doesn't even know Nigerian Constitution. The people don't. How many Nigerians go to read their own Constitution?
Exactly.
They don't know. You know, so when they bring up this argument, because they don't know, they speak from the angle of ignorance. But the point I'm trying to make is the Nigerian leadership have to make up their mind if they want an existence of a true secular state where the secular constitution can reign supreme without any religious inclusion. You know, one thing people don't even understand or don't know is that the United States of America have the power to intervene in a situation where there is excessive religious persecution.
Yes, it's a responsibility to protect.
And if it requires using force to defend the right of the persecuted, they will apply that force where necessary.
You're quite correct.
And they have been proved over time that the threat of this threat to Christian persecution is definitely certainly not just going to be a Nigerian factor eventually if they allow it to continue. It's at some point also going to be extended to other parts of West Africa and globally. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
You're quite correct. You're quite correct. Anyway, maybe you have to start summarizing so that we can get in Cake and also have his opinion.
Okay, let me just summarize. What I'm trying to say is that we have a duty to continue to amplify our voice on this matter. Because our voice is needed and it is very, very important. The idea of raising the issue of Venezuela and making it in comparison with Nigeria is completely uncalled for. These are two different circumstances. These are two different situations. But you know, as the APC media propaganda and their way of trying to bundle everything, trying to defend indefensible.
Exactly.
They think they can bring up the issue of Venezuela and make it a comparison to that of Nigeria. These are two different battle fronts.
It's no longer Sudan.
Completely different.
Sudan is no longer the referencing point. It has shifted to Venezuela.
Yeah, so at some point they say it's because of the oil. Is oil in Sambisa forest? Is America coming? Is there oil in Sambisa forest? Or is there oil in Borno? So what has the fight against terrorism in the north got to do with the oil in the south?
Well, you asked a very good question that I believe we can handle maybe in the next time. So let's get Mazi Keke view. Maz, I want to appreciate you for your wonderful contribution.
Okay, I can stand down, man. Thank you for the program.
Yeah. So you can hear that wonderful submission from Mazi Patrick. He came and of course we'll be getting Mazi Keke Uda, and after that we'll call it a day. Meanwhile, remember, Nigeria has responded to US by letting US understand that US does not have power to mandate Nigeria to change her constitution, and Nigeria is emphatically stating it that she's not a Venezuela. So, Maz, are you here? Good afternoon.
Mazi, good afternoon from here.
So sorry, we can't get you on video because of the network.
Yes, important thing, I'm coming out here because I'm on the highway.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to tell you, yes, that particular point in time. I hope I'm coming out here, man.
Exactly, you're coming out loud and clear.
Okay. Number one, thank you so much. I always thank you because of the wonderful analysis you always throw out there for Biafrans, for Nigerians to debate. And the effort you always make to analyze things, to open the eyes of Nigerians and the Biafra, to let them know what is going on in that particular country. You have touched many areas, and before I will follow you up to touch it and maybe to contribute my own quota, I want to use this opportunity and platform to encourage Biafra, to tell them the leadership are coming on edge today on Radio Biafra. It's an interactive session anyway. You make a call, ask any question you want to ask that is bothering you. All those questions that is disturbing you, that you always call on posting or comment section, go there and make that call, ask them that question, and I hope you will get the answer. So, Mazi, having said that, let us come back to the analysis you are making about this particular Sharia law and Islam. You know, one thing Nigerians don't understand is when the water is on the neck and the people will take it as a caricature, hoping that when my head is still outside, I will survive it. But already the water is still on the neck. So whenever the water reaches the nose, you will see them crying. By that time, it might be too late. So I saw what you read when you are talking with Mazi Patrick. somebody is comparing Nigeria with Venezuela. Yeah, my question, I might be right or wrong, but like always, you always say, Venezuela, did they have Sharia law in their own country? Did they have Islamic problem? Did they have a division of Biafra trying to remove themselves from this Islamic problem? Like you said, yes, there is no doubt about it, about Sharia law in the Nigerian constitution. They strongly put that law during the 1999 constitution. They forcefully put that law. That law was not there during the military time. That law was not there. That law was informed, strongly, forcefully put to Nigerians. Without nobody asking questions, we are
okay,
asking.
Mazi, let us also read a developing story. This is coming from Elias Garasolis. Is one of the conservative Trump supporter in US, and he's also an influential person. So he also have access to the US president. This is what he's writing now. It seems as if the tension is growing up hours and minutes. He said Nigeria is not a country, but an artificial neocolonial construct of the British to empower northern Nigeria Islamists, who the British view as easier to control, to dominate over everyone else. But I guess you like that. Considering you work for the former, he's replying to Ahmed Basha, considering that you work for the former despot Buhari, or shall I call him Jubril of Sudan? This is what a Trump core supporter and influential person in US, he said that the person we call the Buhari, he's telling Ahmed that he's a Jubril of Sudan. A lot of things are revealing. Your so-called democracy, he said your so-called democracy is not real democracy, but a bad joke. So from a very good ally of Trump, we are now hearing that Buhari, on a second time, is a Jubril of Sudan. Mazi, you can go on.
Mazi, now, you know, when Mazi Nnamdi said something like that, many of us said, bring him and kill him. Or do you have evidence? Now, let them go and ask the U.S. writer or writers if they have that evidence of that debate. That is number one. You see, Mazi, let me tell you, I always come to your platform and tell you that thank you for giving us access of addressing or explaining our own problem, our own concern, without waiting for national media to do it for us.
Exactly.
All these things that you see that is happening in Nigeria today, the international community is aware of it. They are all aware of it. They know everything that is going on.
Mazi, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you because I'm hearing a double voice. That's why I was thinking that you are talking.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. We are listening. Because we'll soon be rounding up. Go ahead. Go ahead. We are listening.
Mazi, should I go ahead or you are talking to another person?
Go ahead. We are listening to you, Mazi Keke Oda. Go ahead. We are listening to you.
Okay. Because I was listening to another voice. Sorry for that. So, Mazi, what I'm saying is that you see this problem we are having in Nigeria today. Somebody like or a country like the US, they knows everything.
Yes.
Like you said, they are waiting for the right time for them to penetrate or come in, and nobody can stop them, as you said. Nobody. No, Nigeria is only joking. Mazi, US penetrated to important countries like what is it called?
Iran and all the rest of them. Yes, Iran.
Exactly. Iran, yes. Even Syria. They penetrated on all those countries that is more powerful than Nigeria. And somebody will come here and tell you what is the US, or they are not coming. We have a law. They have to obey our law. No, it doesn't work that way. They will be surprised that the evidence the US have against Nigeria, when they start bringing it out, Nigeria will fall automatically, like you said. It will divide that country into even 4 places.
You're quite correct, Maz.
Automatically. Yes, without without even a gun, only on social media, Nigeria will be divided. You can see them only on social media. They are running letter, sending messages, trying to correct some little problem they have as a country. While they fully know that this is an amalgamated country. This is not a proper country as it's supposed to be. Now, whether anybody like it or not, Nigeria have never been a country. And it can never be a country.
Exactly.
The only people managing it today, like Ahmadu Bello said, that it won't come to us, they will go and give a contract to a foreigner or a Yoruba man. That is exactly what they do to Tinubu. Tinubu was in contract with them there. That's why you see Tinubu today is under mess. You don't know where to go. You don't know what to follow. It's under mess because this is an international problem now. And the national problem, he can't solve it. Internationally, he can't solve it. You see where the man is under mess now.
Thank you, Mazi.
So
thank you.
The problem. Yes.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah, thank you for your wonderful.
Yes,
thank you for your wonderful contribution. Anyway, a lot of things are coming up. You hear Nigerian government have responded to US, saying to US, we are not Venezuela. We are not Venezuela. I don't understand on what context they are equating themselves to Venezuela, because to the best of my knowledge, Venezuela, if you make a comparative analysis of number of aircraft Venezuela has and measure that of Nigeria, you look at air defense system, at least Venezuela has some advanced Russian and Chinese air defense systems, unlike Nigeria. So I don't know where that comparison is coming from. I cannot phantom it, but maybe Daniel Baula knows better why he's telling Trump that they are not Venezuela and they can't change the constitution. I told us earlier that US have been insisting that Sharia should be abolished. Hizbah should be abolished, the Fulani should be disarmed. And it seems that Nigerian government is not interested to shift the ground. And of course, that is exactly what we are seeing developing. And in the same hand, a key Trump supporter in US, whose name is very important, because we are almost coming to the closure of today's program, whose name is Elias Gerasolis. Is a vocal US vocal Trump supporter. He said he's responding to Ahmed. He's responding to Ahmed, who posted something that the US cannot force Nigeria abolish Sharia. And this man was responding. He said Ahmed worked under Jubril of Sudan. And the theory of Jubril of Sudan was postulated and popularized by Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. So is US agreeing with us that the story of Jubril al-Sudan is true? Because you can see a very close friend to Trump, Trump's ally, is now coming to tell us that Bashar Ahmed worked under Jubril, of Sudan. And some people will say, well, they have. Somebody will say, after all, the Nigeria has a Kanu aircraft. Most of you do not know that some of the aircraft sold to third parties, the manufacturers have the manual. They know how to disable them. They can disable them without coming into your country. Just like when America sells air defense system to you, you as vulnerable as anything before America. This is one thing you should understand. When America sells a defense system to you, yes, you gave them money and buy it, but you don't own it outrightly. You don't own it outrightly. Why you don't own it outrightly is because US can disable it. They have a backdrop ways they can still dismantle it. Why it's still existing in your country and you think you are being protected on defense? It can be penetrated and disabled, weakened. So that is all we want to say. So let's see, as things are going to be unfolding and growing, we're going to be coming up with a lot of information. So I want to thank every one of us. I want to ask you to put your eyes on geopolitics. It's very important because Nigeria is on a very concerning path and everyone should follow up. So from here, I want to say good afternoon. Have the best of the day or the afternoon or the evening, as the case may be, and do have your wonderful moment. Bye.